few hours outside of Challis, Idaho, there is a small town that many people haven't visited, driven by, or even heard of. In this town, my great-grandparents lived and raised a family. The place was called May, Idaho, and they owned a cattle ranch called K4 Ranch. I was fortunate enough to experience many summers up on this ranch, and the time that I spent there taught me a lot about life and hard work. The ranch was a huge part of my childhood, and some of my earliest memories are of all the hard work that my grandparents put into the ranch. Eventually, my grandparents, when they were ready to retire, had to sell K4 Ranch. But today, I want to remember its legacy and the impact that it had on my life. Running a ranch is no easy task, and every day, ranchers have to work very hard to maintain everything that happens on the ranch. My grandpa would wake up before everyone else and return way after the sun had set. He put in a full day of hard work, no rest even on the weekends. When I was old enough, they also let me work on the summers, helping with whatever I could. A lot of this was helping the baby cows, feeding the horses, helping my grandma in the kitchen, cleaning, or really whatever she needed. One of the most physically demanding tasks that I had to do on the ranch was shoveling hay. I would sit on the back of my grandpa's pickup truck, take my pitchfork, and heave over huge bundles of hay. It was tiring and it seemed to go on forever. My grandpa would drive over the many, many acres, and we were out there for hours. Whether it was the heat in the summer or the cold in the winter, it didn't matter. We had to feed the cows, and this is what had to be done. Tasks like this taught me things like discipline, determination, and dedication. Once you started a task, you had to finish it. Now, the ranch provided countless opportunities for me to put this hard work into practice, and I'm so thankful that it did. I got to contribute to something bigger than myself. This brought me a sense of fulfillment, of happiness and joy, and knowing that you can be truly joyful and happy after you put in a full days of hard work. I truly think this made me a better sister, better friend, daughter, teammate, and even student. Other virtues than just hard work were learned at the ranch, especially things like patience and empathy. A big part of what I did every morning was feed the baby cows. A lot of them had been abandoned by their mothers or were too weak to join the herd, so I'd mix their formula in bottles and go out early in the morning to feed them. Some of them were skittish and didn't want anything to do with me, or some of them were so eager to be fed that they would rip the bottle right out of my hands. It definitely took a lot of patience to feed them, and a lot of gentleness and kindness to understand that they had been neglected and mistreated, and that's why they needed my help. The ranch presented plenty of hard opportunities that put my virtues to the test, especially when it came to dealing with abandoned litters of kittens and puppies, sick animals, or problems that just seemed like they couldn't find a solution. One of the hardest things that I had to learn was that sometimes putting an animal down was the kindest thing you could do. I distinctly remember a beautiful young horse named Dolly that my grandparents loved. One day, she stepped in a deep hole and broke her leg. It's almost impossible for horses to recover from broken legs, and the kindest thing we could do at that time was to put her down. Things like this taught you a lot of empathy and taught you to be tough and to handle any circumstance that life threw at you. Finally, the ranch taught me a lot about a love for nature. Any time that I would stop and look around me, I knew that I was surrounded by beautiful and breathtaking Idaho scenery. In the free time that I got, I'd spend it fishing at the creek, riding the four-wheelers around the property, collecting rocks, or doing whatever else I could find that involved nature. I also was lucky enough to see things like coyotes, deers, owls, all types of birds and fish, and countless other animals. This gave me a deep appreciation for nature and the beauty that it can provide. My grandparents were also always telling me to take a moment to stop and look around and appreciate the landscape around me. This left me with a deep-seated need to protect the environment, to always care for wildlife and nature. And there was definitely plenty of it on K4. One day, my grandma called me when I was 15 with some sad news. She said that it was time for her and my grandfather to retire and that they would be forced to sell K4 Ranch. Now this was definitely devastating to hear, as I had spent so much of my time exploring the ranch and loving every minute of it. We took one last visit that spring break, and I felt so thankful and so blessed to be able to have called this home for so much of my life. It will always be a huge part of my life, and what I will remember is one of the most formative places that I have ever visited. It was one of my favorite childhood memories, and it will always be remembered as one of the best teachers I could have had.